Like metallic rain falling on a city of neon dreams, our stories are both beautiful and piercingly cold to the touch. Experience the raw intensity of urban drama through a unique and cinematic lens of high-tech art. Click subscribe now and feel every drop of the narrative.
Muck. The morning my gallery opened, I wore a white blazer I had saved 3 months to buy, not because I couldn't afford something better, I could, easily, but because I remembered the exact feeling of not being able to. I remembered what it felt like to count quarters for the subway. I don't let myself forget that. It keeps me honest. My name is Claire. I'm 31 years old. I own a design studio called Meridian in the Flatiron District, and last spring, we were featured in Architectural Digest's Designers to Watch issue. My photo was on page 47. I'm holding a drafting pencil and smiling like someone who has no idea what's coming. My mother saw that article on a Tuesday. I know because my aunt told me later. My mother called her sister before she called me, which tells you everything you need to know about the order of priorities in my family. I hadn't spoken to my mother or my father in 2 years and 4 months. Not a birthday text, not a holiday card. The last time I saw them in person, my father told me I was selfish, cold, and that I would regret choosing my career over my family. My mother stood next to him and said nothing, which in our house always meant she agreed. What I had refused to do, specifically, was co-sign a $200,000 business loan for my younger brother, Derek. Derek was 26 at the time and had never held a job for longer than 14 months. He wanted to open a restaurant, not because he had culinary training or hospitality experience, but because he liked throwing dinner parties and his girlfriend had told him he was a natural. My parents had already given him $60,000 from their savings. They wanted me to put my name, my credit score, my professional reputation, my financial future, on the remaining debt. When I said no, my father looked at me like I had just told him I didn't believe in gravity. "You're the one with money," he said. "You're the one with the stable income. This is what family does." I asked him what family had done when I was 23 and eating instant noodles 4 nights a week while building my portfolio from a studio apartment. What family had done when I asked for $3,000 to cover a gap between freelance contracts, and my father had said, and I am quoting directly, "You made your choices, Claire. Now live with them." That conversation ended with him telling me I was dead to him until I could learn some humility. I took him at his word. For 2 years and 4 months, I built something real. I hired 3 full-time designers. I won a contract with a hospitality group that trusted me to redesign 4 boutique hotels along the East Coast. I rented a proper office with a glass wall facing the street because I wanted people to be able to see us working. I wanted the work to be visible. I had spent so many years being invisible. The gallery opening was a side project, a collaboration with a photographer named Simone, whose architectural series had been sitting in storage because she couldn't afford a proper venue. I offered her my studio space for a weekend. We sent out invitations. The Architectural Digest piece ran 3 weeks before the event, and suddenly we had RSVPs from people I had only ever seen in industry panels. I was standing near the back of the room, holding a glass of sparkling water, watching people stop in front of Simone's photographs when my assistant Maya touched my arm. "Claire," she said quietly, "there are 2 people at the door asking for you. They say they're your parents." I turned slowly. I want to be precise about what I felt in that moment, because it wasn't what you might expect. It wasn't pain. It wasn't even anger. It was something closer to recognition, the specific feeling of seeing a storm on the horizon that you knew was coming but had hoped might pass to the north. My mother was wearing a blue dress I didn't recognize. My father had his hair cut shorter than I remembered. They were both holding the kind of careful, hopeful expressions that people wear when they know they need something and haven't figured out how to ask for it yet. I walked to the door. I did not hug them. "You saw the article," I said. My mother smiled the way she always did when she wanted to skip past an uncomfortable truth. "You looked so beautiful in the photo, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." "You didn't call," I said. "You didn't email. You came here. We wanted to surprise you," my father said. "We wanted to see your success in person." There were 70 people behind me, industry contacts, a journalist from a design blog, 2 potential clients I had been cultivating for 6 months. I did the math quickly, the way you do when you have grown up in a house where conflict always happened at the worst possible time, where scenes were made in grocery stores and parking lots and at Thanksgiving tables with relatives watching. "Come with me," I said. I led them through the side hallway to my private office at the back of the studio. I closed the glass door. I set my water glass down on the desk and I stood rather than sitting because sitting felt like settling in, and I did not want to settle in. It's good to see you're well, I said. I kept my voice level. How's Derek? My parents exchanged a look. That look, the quick, sideways glance they had been exchanging my entire life when they needed to decide how to present bad news, had not changed at all. That's actually part of why we came, my mother said. The restaurant didn't work out, my father said. He held on for 14 months, but the location was bad and the margins were impossible and he lost everything, I said. Not a question. My father's jaw tightened. He needs help, Claire. He's $180,000 in debt, my mother said, and her voice cracked just slightly on the number. He took out personal loans after the business loan. He was trying to save it. You know how hard he works when he believes in something. I did know Derek. I knew that he worked hard at things for approximately 90 days before the enthusiasm wore off, and he started looking for the next thing. I knew that the $60,000 my parents had given him had come from the same savings account they had told me when I was 22. Was earmarked for retirement and not available for personal requests. I knew that the personal loans my mother was referencing had likely been taken out at rates that should have required a second opinion from someone who loved him. What do you need from me? I said, because I had learned that asking directly was faster than letting people build up to it. We need you to co-sign a refinancing agreement, my father said, to consolidate his debt at a lower rate. Your income and credit score would qualify him for something manageable. He can pay it back. He has a plan. Derek always has a plan, I said. Claire. My father's voice shifted, the one I had grown up being afraid of, the one that said we were done discussing and now we were deciding. Your brother is in serious trouble. This family has always taken care of each other. Has it? I said. You have so much, my mother said softly. You have all of this. She gestured at the office, at the studio beyond the glass wall where 70 people were standing in front of beautiful photographs. Derek has nothing. I looked at them both. I looked at my father, who had told me I was dead to him. I looked at my mother, who had stood next to him and said nothing. I looked at the blue dress I didn't recognize and the shorter haircut and the careful, hopeful expressions, and I thought about a very specific afternoon when I was 24 years old, sitting on the floor of my studio apartment eating crackers and peanut butter for dinner, calling my mother to tell her I was struggling, and she had said, "Well, honey, you chose this path. You have to be willing to suffer for what you want." I need to get back to my guests, I said. Claire, I'm not co-signing anything for Derek. I'm not lending money. I'm not personally guaranteeing any debt. I picked up my water glass. You're welcome to stay for the opening if you'd like. There's food near the back. But I need to return to my guests. My father stood up very straight. If you walk out that door, you are telling this family that you choose money over blood. I choose my financial future over a bad investment, I said. Derek is a bad investment. I say that with love. I said it 2 years ago and I'm saying it now. You've changed, my mother said, and the way she said it, sorrowful, accusatory, was meant to hurt. Yes, I said, I have. I left them in the office. I went back to my guests. I stood next to Simone while she talked to the journalist, and I smiled at the right moments and answered questions about the East Coast Hotel project, and I did not look at the glass door at the back of the room. At 9:15, I checked the office. They were gone. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong by approximately 3 weeks. What I didn't know then, what my aunt told me only after it was already in motion, was that my parents had taken out a home equity line of credit 6 months earlier to cover Derek's first round of personal loans. They had $85,000 borrowed against the house they had lived in for 28 years. Derek's additional debt meant the minimum payments were consuming nearly half of my father's pension income. They were not just asking for my help because Derek was struggling. They were asking because they were, quietly, starting to drown. I also didn't know that one of Derek's personal loans had come from a private lender, not quite a loan shark, but close enough that the interest rate made me physically cold when I saw the paperwork later, 41%. Structured as a 36-month term with penalties for early payoff that made refinancing nearly impossible through conventional channels. My aunt called me on a Wednesday afternoon, 11 days after the gallery opening. "They're going to go to your studio again," she said. "Your mother called me last night. Your father is not well, Claire. His blood pressure is bad and he's not sleeping, and Derek just told them he thinks he might have to declare bankruptcy." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, not unkindly. "Because I think you need to be prepared," she said. "And because I think you should talk to someone before they show up. A lawyer, or at least an accountant." My aunt is my mother's older sister. She is 70 years old, sharp as a new blade, and she is the person who gave me my first drafting set when I was 16, because she noticed that I spent Sunday afternoons drawing floor plans of imaginary houses in the margins of my school notebooks. She has never once asked me for anything. What do you know about Derek's debt? I asked. She told me. I spent the next 4 days on the phone with my accountant, with a financial attorney named Rebecca who specialized in debt instruments and who wore the expression of someone who had seen everything twice, with a contact at a factoring company who dealt in distressed consumer debt. What I learned was this: Derek's loan from the private lender had been bundled and sold twice since origination. The current holder was a small investment firm that had purchased it as part of a portfolio of non-performing assets. They were not interested in collecting over 36 months. They wanted to liquidate the portfolio and move on. The loan, roughly $47,000 with accrued interest and penalties now totaling approximately $61,000, could be purchased at a significant discount. Rebecca looked at me across her desk and said, "You understand what you're considering." "I'm buying my brother's debt," I said, "and becoming his creditor. At which point you control the terms of repayment," she said, "within the limits of the original contract and applicable law." "Yes," I said. "Why not just let him go bankrupt?" I thought about my parents' house. 28 years. My mother's garden in the back with the tomatoes she started from seed every March. My father building the deck himself the summer I was 9, letting me hand him nails because I wanted to help, telling me I was his best assistant. "Because if Derek declares bankruptcy," I said, "it accelerates their home equity line and they lose the house." Rebecca nodded slowly. "So you're protecting them?" "I'm protecting the house," I said. "I'm not ready to decide about them yet." I purchased Derek's loan on a Friday morning. The transaction was clean, properly documented, filed correctly. I was now the legal holder of my brother's $61,000 debt. I had Rebecca prepare a new repayment schedule, one I had structured myself, with terms that were still difficult but survivable. Monthly payments Derek could actually make if he got a real job and stopped pretending otherwise. No penalties for early payoff. A clear path to zero. I called my aunt. I told her what I had done and I asked her to pass a message to my parents. I would meet them at a coffee shop on Thursday at 10 in the morning. Neutral territory, not my studio. If they wanted to talk about Derek's situation, I was willing to listen. I arrived 12 minutes early and ordered a black coffee and sat facing the door. My parents walked in at exactly 10. My father saw my face and stopped just inside the entrance. He had the look of a man who had walked into a room expecting one kind of conversation and was suddenly uncertain. They sat down. My mother ordered tea. My father ordered nothing. He put both hands flat on the table. "We want to apologize," my mother said, "for the way we handled things at your opening. It was inappropriate to show up like that." "Thank you," I said. "But Derek is going to be fine," I said. I took a folder from the bag beside my chair. I slid it across the table. "His loan with Pinnacle Capital has been resolved." My father opened the folder. He read the first page. He read it again. The color changed in his face. Slowly, the way color changes when you understand something and then understand what understanding it means. "You bought it," he said. "I'm his creditor now," I said. "Not Pinnacle. Me." "Why would you do that?" my mother asked, and I couldn't tell if it was gratitude or suspicion. With my mother, those two things had always lived close together. "Because Pinnacle's collection strategy was going to make Derek's situation unrecoverable," I said. "And because an unrecoverable Derek means you lose the house." I looked at my father. "I know about the equity line." My father closed the folder. He didn't look at me. He looked at the table. "The new repayment terms are in there," I said. Page 3. Monthly payments he can manage on a real salary. I've also included a list of firms hiring in his field. There's a restaurant management company downtown looking for operations coordinators. It's not glamorous, but it pays adequately and uses the skills he actually has. "You've been planning this," my father said. "I've been thinking," I said. "There's a difference." "Why?" my mother asked again. Different inflection this time. "Choir." I looked at her. I thought about the blue dress at the gallery opening. I thought about the crackers and peanut butter. I thought about what it costs to hold on to anger for 2 years and 4 months and whether the price was worth what you got in return. "Because I was raised to believe that family takes care of each other," I said. "I still believe that. I just have a different definition of what taking care looks like." My father looked up. There was something in his face I didn't have a name for. "Derek doesn't know," I said. "I prefer to tell him myself." And I want to be clear. This isn't forgiveness for everything, and it isn't a return to the way things were. I did this for the house. I did this because you don't deserve to lose your home over choices someone else made. I wrapped both hands around my coffee cup. But I am not co-signing anything. I am not a safety net. I am not a financial resource to be accessed when other options run out. If we have a relationship going forward, it is between equals. Or it is nothing. My mother's eyes were wet. My father pressed his lips together in the way that meant he was not going to cry. Not here, not in public. We were hard on you, he said finally. It was not quite an apology. It was as close as he had probably gotten to one in years. Yes, I said. You were? You didn't deserve it. No, I didn't. The three of us sat with that for a moment. Outside, the city moved past the window in its ordinary way, entirely indifferent to the specific, painful, necessary work of two people beginning to understand their daughter. I called Derek that evening. He answered on the third ring, sounding like someone who'd been waiting for bad news for so long that he'd started to forget what good news felt like. I need to talk to you about your Pinnacle loan, I said. Silence. It's been transferred, I said. I'm your new creditor. Open your email. I just sent you the documentation and the new repayment schedule. The rate is lower, the term is extended, the penalty structure has been removed. More silence. Then, why would you do that for me? I thought you were done with us. I was done with being treated like an ATM, I said. That's different from being done with you. There's a job listing in the email too. Read it. He started to say something. I think it was going to be gratitude, or maybe the beginning of an explanation, the long kind that works backward through all the decisions to find a reason that sounds better than the truth. Derek, I said, read the job listing first. Then we can talk. I hung up. I sat for a moment in the quiet of my apartment, with the city lit up outside the window, and I thought about the white blazer folded over the chair in the corner. I thought about Simone's photographs on the walls of my studio, and the 70 people who had stood in front of them. I thought about the deck my father built when I was 9, and the way he had let me hand him nails because I wanted to help. Some things break clean. Some things break in ways that take years to understand. I didn't have the full map yet. I wasn't sure I ever would. But I knew the terrain better than I had. I knew where the solid ground was. I opened my laptop. I had a hotel project due in 3 weeks, and I was behind on the lobby specifications, and the work was waiting with its familiar, reliable weight. I turned on the desk lamp. I started.